No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Well, looky here. See who I found hiding in the garden. Checking out all the pepper plants. Joining in with us today, and I want to thank you all for joining us for the show. Now, let's get growing. All right, gardeners, welcome. Here we are again this Saturday morning for the Let's Get Growing show on the Urban Gardener channel. I want to thank you all so much for joining with me here for our show this week. We have a really great special guest for us today. We've got Kaye from Late Bloomers Show joining with us here in just a little bit. So stay tuned for that great interview. I've been looking forward to talking with Kaye for quite a while now since we started the show. So we finally got her on the show today, and we'll talk with her in just a little bit. If you all are here with us real quick, right at the top of the show, I want to ask all of you real quickly to hit the thumbs up button, click the like button down below. Let us know that you're here. If you haven't had a chance to, or you're just joining with our show this week and are just first seeing it right now, click the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel and check out some of our future shows, some of our past shows. We've had lots of really awesome guests like Kaye on our show here. So go check out some of those other shows that we have. And also be sure to share our show with all of your garden friends out there and let them know that we've got a really great show here. And if you get a chance, you can go check out our website at letsgetgrowing.live. And also, too, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comments section there. And especially when we have our guest on, ask any sort of questions, and we'll be sure to get to those and ask our guest when we get a chance. And also, best way to support our show is to support our sponsor. The show, Let's Get Growing, is sponsored by ivorganics.com. They have lots of really great organic products there at their website. Really cool fertilizer that I'm using in my garden this year, I think is really great. They have this awesome 3-in-1 plant guard that does all sorts of great things for your plants. So be sure to go check out those products. Use our promo code GROW10, GRW10, to get 10% off of everything they have in their shop there. So yeah, here we are. Another great week for our show and another okay week for the garden. Again, we're still kind of in that phase of trying to survive the summertime. There's so much heat out there this last week. Everybody else has been, I've been hearing about most of the summer season so far is all these extreme heats and all these other places. People are topping well over 100, like down in Arizona, they were like 110 for so many days in a row, setting records and all of that. That's what I've been hearing everywhere. And we've so far had somewhat moderate heat this year for us. We usually have a lot of over 100-degree days by this time of year, and up to about last week, just after I talked to you guys last week, again, was pretty moderate, and then all of a sudden it just hit us. We've been over 100 degrees all this last week, getting up close to 110 for a couple of those days as well. I've got a couple of plants out there that doesn't even care how much I make sure that they're staying watered and hydrated. The heat is just too much for them. And I've only got so much shade cloth that I'm using for some other things. I need to prepare for these next upcoming seasons if this is just the way it's going to be anymore, and get myself some more shade cloths to protect some of these other plants that I have that are kind of growing along our alleyway and just have full direct sun throughout the throughout the whole day. And some of the plants are just not having it. I'm doing my best I can to make sure, again, that roots aren't drying out. We have, a lot of container plants as well throughout the garden, our in-ground plants, just trying to make sure that they're all staying hydrated. We're not allowing those roots to dry out, because that can cause some real problems with nutrient lock and the plant's inability to do uptake any of those soil nutrients. And so yeah, especially in those tomatoes, a lot of people, again, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago too, BER, blossom end rot. Blossom end rot comes from these kind of extreme temperatures, this extreme heat, causing us to, whether we're on a certain watering schedule, things will dry up. We have a hard time getting to them in a consistent basis. So therefore, those roots are kind of going through a little bit of trouble trying to make it through the heat, and possibly even drying out a bit under the soil there. And that creates an inability for them to take up that calcium that those plants need, and some of those other nutrients. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so much blossom end rot. I mean, I look every single day on all of my Facebook groups and all of my gardening groups, and all I see over and over again every single day are pictures and posts from people who are showing their tomatoes and wondering what's happening. Most new gardeners, and with all this kind of new extreme heat that we're seeing each and every summer, more and more people are experiencing blossom end rot in their tomatoes, and even in other fruits. Peppers will do this. Cucumbers and other fruiting plants, will have blossom end rot as well too. It's just really prevalent in our tomatoes. And when we start seeing extreme heat like this all across the country, more and more people are going to be experiencing this issue. And really, in the long run, again, as I've also mentioned before, utilizing eggshells to be some sort of quick remedy for blossom end rot, or trying to put calcium into your soil, isn't going to be the fix that you need for this. Really, you just got to try to make sure you're maintaining a good, consistent watering schedule, making sure your plants are getting enough water. And again, too, one of the other things, I'll also mention this, tomatoes kind of have this happy medium that they need to be at. And it's kind of hard to figure out too, especially again with all of these different types of temperatures and weather that we're not used to experiencing. The tomato plants are going to fall on one end or the other. Up in the Northeast, I know that they've been dealing with tons and tons of rain, and getting way too wet. Saturated soil is going to also do a very similar thing as to what dry soil is going to do. It's going to cause lockout. It's going to make the roots not have the ability to uptake those nutrients and those calcium and all of that those plants need. So on the far end with way too wet, you're going to experience this, and on the other end with not wet enough, extreme heat, you're going to be seeing this blossom end rot issue. And it's going to probably be, if we're going to be seeing these kind of temperatures consistently in these next several years, it's going to be something that newer gardeners are going to have to be dealing with every year. And when it comes down to it, there's not much you can do about it for your plants that year, other than trying to, again, get your watering a little bit more consistent. And then at that point, the plant will basically remedy itself. As soon as it can start uptaking that calcium and those other minerals and all that from your soil, then the plant will start to take care of itself. A lot of people who experience blossom end rot are only going to find maybe a handful, maybe a dozen fruit out of all of the fruit on their plants that'll be affected. And a lot of that new fruit, as you get moving down the season or temperatures start to level out, then you'll see that the plant will take care of itself when it comes to that. So that's, again, big issue when it comes to dealing with our gardens at this time of year. Also, another thing that I'm experiencing too right now, I haven't had too much of it. We did have a big wildfire that was about north of me, about an northeast of me, about an hour or two away outside of Grants Pass, Oregon. And that fire kind of got taken care of. It brought in just a little bit of smoke over the last couple of weeks. But right now, they've got about 4 major wildfires up in Northern California, just on the other side of the border from us in Oregon. And those fires are just bringing in a ton of smoke right now. We just over the last couple of days, it's a little bit clearer today than it's been in the last few days, but I mean, it's thick as fog on some days, and the air quality outside is just unbreathable when it comes down to it. And at that point, a lot of gardeners are wondering, what is this doing to my plants outdoors? Because they're out there the whole time consistently. So if you're in an area that's dealing with wildfires or smoke or any of those sort of things, just know that your plants are going to do okay throughout all of that smoke. In fact, they're going to kind of like a lot of that carbon that's in the air. That's what they do, is they recycle a lot of that sort of stuff for us and turn it into oxygen. So they're not going to mind a lot of that carbon that's in the air from the smoke. The problem that you're going to see and you'll want to look at is the ash that falls down is left behind by the smoke in the air, and that'll accumulate on your leaves, and the little stomata, which is the little cells that kind of breathe on your leaves, are going to get clogged up with that ash. So again, it's also, it's another way to also take care of this issue is to just water your plants down, wash those plants down, make sure that any of the ash is getting washed off, and that's going to kind of wash that into your soil, and it's going to add a little bit of ash to your soil, a little potassium. So in the long run, should be all right. Give your plants a little bit of boost on that end as well. So for the most part, your plants are going to be doing all right. It's just about whether or not you could get yourself outside long enough to make sure that everything's getting watered and washed off so that your plants are thriving throughout this part of the season, and making sure again that you're getting all those tomato plants watered well. And one other thing too, if you got in-ground tomato plants, the best form of watering that I think works the best for me anyways is deep watering. I just put the hose down at the bottom there, and I just kind of flood it out and soak these plants down every 3-4 days, and just let them get a nice deep watering, and then I let them go for a few days, and then we'll do that again as the top of the soil is starting to dry out in those first couple of inches, and then we'll do that again in deep water. And all of those plants seem to be doing really, really well. Haven't seen any blossom end rot on those, although even I do have to deal with that issue myself, and I have a few plants where it has been an issue as far as some of our larger containers. So again, watch out for that. It's one of those things that we have to deal with when it comes to all of these different changing temperatures and changing environmental situations, especially again for those on the West Coast and other parts of the country that are experiencing wildfires. So yeah. Anyways, I wanted to we're going to bring back our segment in the garden. So let's check that out. I got a little look around our back patio for you. All right, gardeners, great to have you with us here in our garden today. I just want to actually kind of show you around and take a look at some of the things that we've got growing in our back patio space. And maybe next week I'll take you along the alleyway here and show you the other things that we have growing as well. So to start us off here real quick, we've got our corn, which is growing just on the other side of our patio here. And yeah, it's growing pretty good. In fact, we got to start harvesting off all of the ears. They've all pollinated. They look like they're about ready to go right now. So I'm gonna have to start taking those off here just a little bit later today. Now let's go take a look at what's on the other side. right down below here on the other side of the fence in our patio, do got this cucumber plant that got started a bit late, but it's growing really, really well right now. We've got lots and lots of flowers coming off of it. Just don't see any fruit yet, although you never know, there can be some hidden down there. And over here we've got some of our volunteer Prax cherry tomatoes. We're starting to put out lots and lots of little tomatoes all over the plants right now. Just don't see any getting red quite yet, but it should be happening here real soon. And right down this way we've got kind of a cabbage plant here that hasn't really gone anywhere. Got a couple of eggplant. There's one nice fruit right on there on that plant. Got a little Brussels sprout here too that's just basically trying to survive the summertime right now, and as we start to cool off, this thing will start to really grow and start to grow all those Brussels sprouts here as we start to cool off. So we've got that, and I've got a few more right up over here too as well that are growing in our elevated raised bed, which should be producing bunches of Brussels sprouts coming up this winter. And here we've got, it looks like a Lesia variety of pepper here. Look at the color on those pepper pods, just awesome. This one here is ready to be harvested. Got a few more growing. I think this is the same variety, yep. Same variety of Lesia pepper there. And we've got some bell peppers on this plant. You can see in this 5-gallon bucket we've got some onions that are growing, and again ready to be harvested. You can tell because the leaves and the stalk have fallen over. And along here we've got on all of our 5-gallon wicking buckets all of our pepper varieties. And we've got lots of different like sweet peppers, bell peppers. These ones look like maybe an Anaheim. Some more bells we've got there, and look at these. Those ones are nice. Some nice sized bell peppers. Look at this big one down here. That's a nice big pepper there. More of the Lesia variety. This thing's produced some really nice pods. Really big ones on this plant here too. And I believe this variety here is a yellow cayenne. And then this one here I think is a Santa Fe variety that I have. Lots of great peppers growing on there. And over here we've got growing on this trellis. In our small space we got to utilize as much vertical as we can, so we've got these cucumbers growing on the trellis here. These are our lemon cucumber variety. There's some nice ones on there right now. And I also have, as you can tell here with this different leaf, a rounded leaf. This is a cantaloupe versus a pointed leaf for our cucumbers. I'm not sure, let's see, oh yes, here's the cantaloupe right back here growing. I'm sure there's more down here. This is another one of our tall, elevated raised beds. It's all kind of waist high, so you just get right into work right there without having to bend over or anything. And we've got more onions growing in here, as well as this red Merlot lettuce, which I've grown in the garden the last couple of years, but I didn't save any seed last year, so that's what we're doing this year. I'm growing these out so I can save up the seed, So hopefully we can grow lots more of this next season. And over here I got a fig tree. As you can see, there's a couple of figs on there. And we don't have much going on with our other bed right here right now other than growing out more seed. This is a smaller, really kind of like a dwarf-sized lettuce variety. So we're saving seed there. We'll let a lot of it drop in there, and that'll be our salad greens for this next season. We've got our strawberry plants still producing some strawberries in here. And see in there we do have a tomato variety growing in our cage right there. It's got a few tomatoes. Nothing getting red quite yet though. We even got a strawberry growing right out of the crack here as one of the runners set itself in there and found its roots down in there, but even those ones there will produce some strawberries as well. And here we have a dwarf variety of tomato called Orange Hat. These are really small, compact tomato plants. And they're really starting to put off all their fruit right now with lots and lots of flowers still. These will turn into nice little orange cherry tomatoes here real soon. Really delicious tomatoes. And then right next to it we've got this plant here. This is called cardamom. And I got this plant from our guest today, Kaye gave me little cuttings off of one of the big plants she had in her front yard LA garden. So I've had this plant now for a good 4+ years now, I think. But it's still going strong in our garden. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. And now it's going to be time for our featured guest. So, all right. Our featured guest this week is Kaye. Kaye went from Hollywood actress to YouTube gardening over 12 years ago and has well over 100,000 subscribers following her gardening adventure. Kaye was one of the first YouTube gardeners that I had a chance to interview several years ago in her front yard urban garden in Los Angeles. She now lives in a small homestead in Tennessee, so it'll be interesting to hear about what that transition was like. So awesome. Let's welcome Kaye to the show. Hey, Kaye,
Hello.
how are you doing? It's awesome to have you here with us today. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it very much.
Awesome. I've been looking so forward to having you on the show for a while. As you know, we've been emailing back and forth for a while to get this going on. And first off,
I did. Enoch, first of all, let me just show you. I did this just for you.
Oh, wow. Look at, oh yeah, peppers too. How well. That's awesome.
So take a screenshot of this. It's more current than the one that we
here,
have in the
actually,
ad.
let me put this up real quick so everybody can see that right up. Oh yeah.
So this is
Look at all
this
that wonderful
morning, and
color.
this is just from the side garden. This is not the lower garden. So
Amazing.
I don't know what I'm going to do with all these peppers, but I just wanted to show it because it's so colorful. And the video I uploaded today was about fermenting peppers and cucumbers. So
Oh man, awesome! How apropos! We just took a little look around the back patio area of my garden, and that's where we have most all of our peppers growing right now. So that's great to see all of those awesome.
I'm amazed at all the stuff you have back there because I know you don't have a huge space.
Yeah. Oh man, we try to put as much as we can, and I would say I've had better gardens back there in the years past, but it's not doing too bad. It really isn't doing too bad at all. Really great. So real quick, right at the top of this interview, I want to share with everybody a real quick story how I met Kaye Cottrell. I was down this was my first year doing my YouTube channel. I've been gardening for several years, but one of the things I'd really wanted to do was to go to the National Heirloom Exposition. So I told myself if I can do a year of gardening YouTube videos, I was going to reward myself with a trip down to Santa Rosa to go see the Heirloom Exposition and to hopefully check out some of my favorite gardeners that I watch on YouTube. And I was filming some footage of a talk that was going on. I believe it was Vandana Shiva, right? I think I got her name right. Yeah. And she was talking, and I was there trying to just get a good view of what was going on. And I was inching over, looking through my view screen. So I wasn't looking where I was going. And here I bumped into this person, and I felt like I almost knocked her over. And she grabs me and says, hey, this and that. And she noticed that I was filming, and this was Kaye Cottrell. I mean, I look over and I'm like, I'm really, really sorry. Because I just really knocked into you, and you were like, oh, no, more than worrying about whether I was sorry or not, you saw I had a camera, you wanted to make sure I was getting the right view of the stage. And so instead of like being bothered by me,
I can't help myself.
You're like, oh no, what you need to do is get down low right here and take a look right up from there. That's the best shot.
Yeah.
And that was my first interaction with Kaye. And for me, the whole time I'm standing there because I had been watching your channel for years. I was a fan of YouTube gardening channels. I've been a fan of so many different YouTube gardeners. And then to look right over and notice that it was you, and you were giving me right off the bat YouTube video advice and all of that was just really, really awesome. And then later on, I mentioned in our introduction there, I did get to go and visit with you at your home garden, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment.
Yeah. I've always tried to help people, because I have a background, obviously, in front of the camera, but I've been a serious photographer since 1990. And so I'm always thinking about the frame, the lighting in a situation like that in a conference room at night. You are stuck with whatever the spotlights, you're just stuck with that. But it's always the light is everything, and the frame is very important. And I was just giving some tips to a lady who watches my channel the other day, Darlene. Darlene's Garden. I forget the exact title, but I want to give a little shout out to Darlene because she's been doing a channel for 5 years, and she's still less than 1,000 subscribers. And so I went to her channel, and I looked at some videos, and I gave her some tips. So hopefully that can help her engage more people, to her channel. Spread the love,
That's right. And that's just, one of the things I've found really awesome about all of especially right at first. I mean, when I first met you there at that exposition, I barely had 300 subscribers. And, I also got to meet a few other people who were doing content creation in the gardening world, and they were all the same. It's just, everybody's just really awesome about, sharing and giving tips and doing that sort of stuff. At least a lot of
Almost
the people.
everyone.
Almost.
Let's
I mean,
be
there
honest.
are some there. There are some out there, but for the most part,
Once you get to a certain level, you don't have the time.
sometimes
okay.
it can be that. Sometimes it can be that way. Absolutely, and I've found
that's
that
okay.
over the
I just
years.
wanted
But
to point out.
Yeah, at first, people were really nice.
Yeah, they are. I just wanted to point out that was quite a night. That was 2017, and Vandana spoke first. I don't know. She was going every year, I think, because she was there in 2013. So it's the second time I met her. And if you don't know who Vandana Shiva is, really look it up. She is an amazing, amazing human being, and her whole purpose is not whole purpose, but she's of course Indian, and she has a seed saving group, and so and she works with women farmers and family farmers, in India, and she travels the world. She has devoted her life for really the health of the world and the health of seed. So check that out. And then after that, Moms Across America spoke, and then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke. So guess what? He's now running for president. So that was quite a lineup that night. And you got it all on camera, right?
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, I got most all of it there. We do have several videos. I should have put links, but we do have links to all that in playlists down on our channel for.
Yeah, so do I. So, if anybody's interested in what they had to say back then, that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, the Santa Rosa burned. Right.
Yeah. It was 2018 after that show. And I was just talking about this in the introduction, talking about the wildfires and everything that we've been seeing on such a consistent basis year after year here on the West Coast. And right now we've got 4 big fires right there in Northern California, just on the other side of the Oregon border in California there. And it's flooding our valley with smoke. Over the last few days, it's been as thick as fog around here. And it's just, those are days you got to hide out inside, filter your air as best as you can. I've got house filters for all of that.
And they've got flooding down in Southern Cal.
Yeah. Flooding
or the threat of flooding, or, in the desert.
Yeah. And as I was mentioning.
And the Canada wildfires. The Canada wildfires are back. We have someone on right now from Canada, Betty Freckles. I just noticed. So I want to say hi to her. And I saw Jane. Thank you for tuning in. And
I'm my man, Jay, our moderator. He's from Canada.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, hi, Jay.
Yeah. So, tons of that sort of stuff going on. It makes me worry more and more about what's in store for us in the future, but just what we have to deal with year in and year out. It's just become a thing. I was talking with someone yesterday. It's going to be a thing, every single year we get a couple of weeks of smoke at least. And some years we get it piled on us like we saw over the last couple of days, where it's, like I said, it's thick as soup out there. It's just amazing. You can't even see a couple of blocks down the street.
It's very bad for your lungs.
Yes.
I mean, we don't know what's in the smoke, because it's just, but anyway, it's something we have to deal with.
Yes, it definitely is.
Rob's Allotment Gardening is here. That's nice. Welcome.
Yeah. Rob's here with us. We got Connie here. Urban Homestead. We got so many people here, Kaye. In fact, I think right now you are also, and this is something I didn't mention, you're also streaming on your channel, which our streamer allows us to do. So we've got a lot of people joining us from over at your channel as well, and joining with us here on our channel. So great audience today.
This is the first time I've done this, so bear with me. I think I followed the directions right, but now that you have taught, Enoch, you have taught me how to do this, and I can now do interviews as well, because I have an account on this StreamYard. And I wanted to just say, I don't know if she's tuned in yet, but no, we're not. We're going to mention Maui for sure. Linda.
Yes.
I wanted to mention Carol. I hope she's going to be able to tune in. Carol is the first person I'm going to interview, and Carol has found a way as an older person to work smarter and not harder. And I just wanted to mention while I have the floor, if you see me kind of doing like this, I overdid it. I tweaked my shoulder yesterday and
Oh no.
Yeah. And so you can really, I mean, I was just pulling out these weeds and I was saying to myself, Kaye, just wait and water this like for hours and then try to pull the weeds out. It'll come out so much easier because everything's so dry. And remember when I was complaining about too much rain like a week ago? Oh no, that water is gone. Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Ow. So if you see me flinch, that's what's going on. My shoulder's a little tweaked. But and then of course Daryl will be my second guest.
Awesome. That's great. I look forward.
I can't wait to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome to introduce you to this whole thing here. It's really
I really
fun.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm telling you, I've been really enjoying this whole format of doing this show, getting to talk to all the great gardeners that I've gotten to talk to over these last many weeks. We started the show back in late February. And we pretty much had a really great guest most each and every Saturday morning here. So for all of you who are watching and are new to watching the Let's Get Growing show, do be sure to come and subscribe to our show, share it with your friends, and let everybody know we got this great show. We've got lots more great gardeners to introduce you to, so lots of fun here on the Let's Get Growing show. And so right off the bat here, let's get into your garden story just a little bit, because it's it's not necessarily unique in a sense. I'm sure there's a lot of people with pretty similar stories as far as when you got started gardening. I mean, a lot of people have a history, a family history with gardening, early childhood, types of experiences when it comes to gardening. But for you're kind of on the opposite end, right?
Yes, I actually, both of my grandparents were major farmers, and one was very poor. It was during the Depression, and they were very subsistence. If they didn't grow it, they didn't eat, period. And my other grandparents, he was a gentleman farmer, so he had a farm because, I mean, there were no fast food joints. There was maybe one cafe, but everybody ate 3 meals at home every day, except maybe on Sunday after church. And so, or if business people would eat in a cafe at lunch or something like that, but everybody ate at home. Everybody cooked their own food and they grew their own food. So I had we had the benefit of being able to go to our grandparents and just raid the chest freezer or canned goods or whatever. But my father was a businessman in a small town, and we lived 3 blocks from the square where he had his business. And so we had a small yard, and it wasn't set up. I mean, our front yard, I think, was 15 feet deep from the little tiny street. So there was no place for a big garden. And my mother had her hands full. She made all our clothes, and she had 4 children, and she did our hair. She did everything, and she made our furniture. It's just I mean, I can't say enough about my mother, but she did not grow food. She tried. One time she did this. She set up. There's a little area outside our house sloped down and back, and after they built the addition, because we just started out with a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, little tiny house. And my father added on after the 2 girls, and because he wanted 4, so he got what he wanted. So we outside of the back, there was just a little bit of, it was probably about 8 feet by 10 feet maybe. And she decided to grow tomatoes. And I just have a vague recollection. This was when I was young. And so she had some tomato plants down there, and she looked out the bathroom window, which was up on the upper level. And she looked out on a Sunday morning, and she saw a copperhead going across the patio to go into that tomato patch. And that copperhead met its fate that day. But I think my father took care of that. But by the end of the day, she went out with a hoe and chopped every one of those tomato plants down. And that was the end of growing food in my house. But she did everything else. She did everything else. She was a great cook. So
Yeah,
it's wonderful. Anyway, so I had that benefit growing up, but I never did any of that. And as soon as I graduated from college, I went to a larger and larger and larger city. I went to Washington, D.C., and then where I stayed for a couple of years, got married, went to New York, stayed there for 7 years in Manhattan, first in an apartment and then in a purchased apartment, and then to LA, lived in an apartment for 3 or 4 years, and then got the house. So at some point, the house had a very small yard, and in 2011, I met a biodynamic farmer he was affectionately known as Farmer Jack. His name was John, John something. I have a couple of videos with him on my channel. That first year, he had a foolproof method for germinating lettuce in a pot. And it works, trust me. And so there's a video on that in my first year of late bloomer. And so I started, he said, take out the grass. It was just a small front yard, and that's where the sun was because the backyard was shaded. And take out the grass and plant 2 citrus trees and surround them with nasturtium and herbs. And I did that, and I was off to the races, and I never looked back. And at some point, I dug up the parkway. The parkway is the area between the sidewalk and the street. And in my case, it was 6.5 feet. Every foot was measured off because I had so little space. And the driveway came in at an angle across the sidewalk. And so there were 14.5 feet on one side and 20 feet on the other side by 6.5. And so I decided to dig all that up, which was mostly rocks. I had to strain all those rocks out, dig it up, very hard work, and put in more soil and cover. I even did cover crops in those tiny little parkways, buckwheat and what's the I can't think of it. The lacy one. It's not coming to me. Anyway,
you had so much stuff growing there.
So I had so much stuff. I just packed it all in, and because it was year-round gardening, I could keep things going. And for the channel, there would be always something interesting and pretty. And since I came into this, I had made 2 or 3 short films, written, directed, and produced. And so, but I had a strong photographic background. And so I came into this taking more stills. And because I had an editor, I didn't know how to do any of this. Because I had an editor, I could give her 20 beautiful pictures of flowers, and she could make a little montage and a little slideshow within the video, and it would just be and music, and it would just be great. And I photographed bugs and flowers, and there was always something really interesting and beautiful. And because I had a production team, the show looked really good. And then in 2016, when YouTube said, no, we want more videos and we want them longer, I paid my sound editor and my editor and my composer. It's called Favored Nations, where everybody gets the same amount. And so she needed more money to work on longer videos. And so I had to just cut all of that out, and I had to learn how to edit myself. And I learned how to edit on my, I think it was whatever we had in 2016, whatever version of iPhone it was in 16. That's what I learned to edit on. And Adobe had just issued, I don't know if it's still around, a program called Clip. And it was so easy. But Clip, and if you ever go back and look at those videos from 2016, because I did a lot of traveling. I went to Vancouver. I went to a lot of places. I went up to Sharon's in Delaware. I did 4 or 5 videos there. I went to Pittsburgh. I did a lot of traveling, a lot of visiting people, and I shot it all on my cell phone. And then I could just, because I was traveling, I could just edit it. really quickly on the cell phone. But the drawback with that software was they only had a select number of like generic music clips, and most of the people using this software were like young and hip, and they were just doing images, and yet I did boom, 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 just exciting music.
Yeah.
And I needed something calm and peaceful, and so, and you couldn't stop it and start it. You had, if you laid that sound in, that song, it repeated all the way for like 16 minutes. That song is on repeat. And it was just like, I'm going, I can't do this anymore. And when I was up in Delaware at Sharon's, I said, okay, I got to jump to iMovie. And so she had a guy helping her out there, and he knew iMovie. So he just showed me a couple of the basics on iMovie. And by the time I got home from that trip, I said, I really didn't want to use iMovie. And my editor, we were starting to part ways, and she said, come down to Newport Beach and I'll give you a lesson on Premiere Pro, which is what I'm still working on. I mean, I am not really qualified to use such a complex program, but I do, I bang it out. So anyway, do you want me to continue on to come into how I wound up here?
Well, yeah, actually, real quick, I was just, you mentioned you had the photography background, and something I mentioned before, and we'll just kind of jump off of gardening for one quick second, though. You do, you have a history also of, one of the reasons why I think you ended up in Los Angeles was acting. You were an actress, and you've done a lot of television shows and different things like that.
I wish I'd done a lot more.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure there's a lot of actors who wish that too, right? When it comes down to it in that area. But no, you got to do that and got that experience and all of that. But there was a point there where you decided to transition from doing that. And again, you said you had a photography background, similar to me. One of the reasons why I got started doing what I'm doing, is because I've got a bit of a photography background as well. More journalism on the other end versus, being in front of the screen like yourself, or in front of the camera like yourself. So instead of doing and being in front of the camera for these shows, what made you think of the idea of getting in front of the camera to start a gardening YouTube channel, though? What was the inspiration for that ultimately? It was a moment.
It actually was a moment, and I believe it was an epiphany. And I was either on my knees or on my bottom in the parkway, digging out rocks. People would walk by because it's a public park, a public sidewalk.
Yeah.
Between this and that. And at the time I started, there was an ordinance in LA that said it was illegal to do that. It was against the ordinance, and you could be fined $400 if you planted vegetables in the parkway.
Oh, wow.
But they would not enforce that fine unless someone complained.
Okay.
And so, to my knowledge, there were only 2 other people in my section of the Palisades. We lived in the sort of the modest section, not where Spielberg and Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman and on and on and on.
Modest, really nice neighborhood still, though. But
it is. It is
not the big houses of those types, but more regular homes. But really,
10 houses to the street, and the entire lot is slightly larger than just my lower garden right now in the front yard. The entire lot. And it was this moment, I was sitting there, and people would walk by and they go, what are you doing? What are you growing? I'd say rocks. Yeah. And, that would always get a laugh. And I just had this epiphany one day, and I just said, if I'm not going to be on Broadway, which was always my dream, if I'm not going to be acting on Broadway, I'll have my own show on gardening, because I love plants, and I love growing plants, and I actually even love bugs, and I mean all of that, Yeah. So I felt very strongly that it was from God, and still do, and I feel like He directed me here. that I wound up here, because I had two other options. I had two other houses under contract, and I just pulled out, and I thought, both of them seemed like too many things to fix, and I wanted to get in here and to get into a house that I could just immediately start living in so I could focus on the garden,
Yeah.
And so did I answer your question?
I think pretty much. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of in that time that you decided that, you wanted to have your own show. And again, too, you did describe and talk about those early videos I remember watching when I was first getting started in my garden. Because when I first started gardening, I would, immediately YouTube is, this new place where people are sharing all this information. So, I share my story of having this little cucumber plant that a friend gave me in an apartment I lived in. And I'd grown all these house plants for years. House plants were fine, but this little cucumber plant, this was something new and different for me, something that was going to produce food. And so I immediately went to YouTube, I immediately went online to go find out what am I going to do? How am I going to take care of this? And from there, that's where I started finding, my passion for gardening started to grow, especially through all the new people I was meeting through YouTube who were sharing all of their great content. And you were one of those with those early videos that you put out. Like I said, they were a little more professional. I really liked those. But then as you move towards those more personal type videos where you're doing it themselves, I think that's really where the character of your channel just really started to develop itself, and to the point where you are today. You're really showing the person you are, and you can tell by all the comments that we're already getting on this show that people really love you and everything that you share. And and again, too, I was one of those early people. But real quick,
it's funny. This is funny. This is an inside tip. Only people that tune in for this kind of thing would get to know this. But my editor, I was so particular because I was still an actor. I only got to start my channel because, don't forget, I paid them, right?
Yeah.
I only got to start my channel because I booked 2 national network commercials, one in 2011, one in 2012. I'm trying to think what the 11 was. Already forgot. But American Airlines was the one in 2012. And at that time, not anymore. Nothing works like that anymore. Since the internet, nothing works like it used to. We had contracts. We were respected. People wanted talented, experienced people in their commercials. That's all gone. Now they don't care. And they're not going to pay for experience and talent anymore. They just want a look, and if they can say 2 or 3 words, whatever. But anyway, at the time, it was still, you had to have some skill. And so I booked these national commercials, which was, the way that a lot of actors made their living, back in the day. And so that gave me the income to be able to afford to pay these people. Pay these women, these 3 women. So, and don't forget, I only did 2 a month. Is it 2 a month? Yeah. 2 a month, because it was 20. I did it like a show, 20. I was going to do 22 episodes a year. That's what I did for 5 years. And so it was manageable. The money was manageable and I had money coming in, but then I didn't book anything after that. And I kept thinking after the first year, I would have a show on HGTV, but guess what? HGTV stopped carrying garden content. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Home and garden television has no garden content. Yeah, they just want to flip houses and stuff, so, okay, fine.
It's like MTV with no music.
Figure that one out,
What is wrong there, right? Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we're all glad in the long run that everything ended up the way it did.
That I persevered, that I'm still here.
And you kept going and learned how to do all that stuff. And again, going to when I first got to meet you, that was my first trip down to Los Angeles to go do a few meetups. And I remembered I watched all of your videos and all these sort of things, and we're following along. But I didn't really realize really how small, because you described this just a little bit ago too, how small that space was that you were gardening in until I got there. You know, I remember driving up and immediately I could go, okay, that's where I'm supposed to be going, because you could tell right there, here's the person growing all of this stuff in their front yard. So immediately could tell where you were, but then I was just shocked to realize, like, wow, this is a really small space. And still to this day, I mean, I've been to John Kohler's yard, I've been to a lot of other people's yards and their gardens. Still to this day, I think your front yard garden has been still the best use of small space that I've ever seen. You had everything just in its right little environment, you know, things that should be shaded underneath of taller plants and just packed in there. You had so much stuff growing in that front yard garden. I still think it's one of the most amazing front yard gardens I've ever seen.
Thank you. It's the magic of making movies, for one thing, you know, because angles, wide angles, a lot of close-ups, you know, just constant trying to, you know, make a little movie and make a small space look big. And I was always trying to do that.
Yeah.
And I succeeded.
There was a spot you had, I think you called it Kaye's Corner.
Yeah, Cozy Corner.
Yeah, you had your little table. It's where we did our interview for.
That's on the front porch down here.
yeah, that's where you did the interview. And I remember seeing this, and you just sitting there at this table or whatever, and you would share different things, whatever was going on in the garden. I remember seeing this space, like you're saying, you see it, and it looks like this big space, nice little area where you could sit down and do everything. And I remember when I got there, and you're like, okay, let's do it at the, you know, your little cozy corner. And I remember just walking through all of the different things, and it was just this little tiny corner, and we were just fitting ourselves right into this space. And it was nothing like what you saw on the video, and the sense was like what the space was. And
I know, it's crazy. And I had a birch tree. It used to be a grouping of 3. I'm not sure how many were there when you were there, but a birch tree right beside the little play shed, which I turned into a garden shed. And from there, I had a green triangular, well, it was kind of a triangle tarp canvas that went to the house and to the fence back right at the, right at the fence there. And so it continued the shade from the tree, and which is very important if you're shooting, if you're filming and you're trying to learn about this kind of thing, is like you have to create some continuous shade, because otherwise you can start your whatever and you can be talking there for an hour and then the sun is blasting you in the face. And if your camera does not, if you just have it on auto exposure, it doesn't always correct for your face. It takes the whole scene into question. And so it's challenging. And so I could talk all day about, how to work with small space gardening. Now I'm trying to figure out how to work with big space gardening.
Another thing with that sort of idea about shade, though, too, and I did this with an interview once. I had it all set up. It was a perfect little spot for us. Set the camera up, and it was, the sun was just beaming right down on us. Gave us good light for the interview. But man, I'll tell you what, I got my face so sunburnt. Sitting there for that interview, and I was like, I learned right from that point, and never do an interview, especially if you're doing longer interviews like I do sometimes, with the sun blaring in your face like that. That was just
And another thing in when you're in the city and you're trying to make videos is, I was under 3 flight paths in that house. I was under the and people watching my videos have no idea, really, no idea what I went through to make those videos without airplane noise, because I would be we didn't have air conditioning, and I would be putting on, and the windows were always open because it's never cold, and I would be putting my makeup on at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, and I would hear the first jet going down to LAX, because the ocean was just right over there, and it would go right down the coast. And and then once it would start, it would be every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, you have a jet going into LAX. So and back then I wrote my scripts. And so I would write in like 2 sentences, something I could definitely say in like 1 minute, And sometimes I had to do the open 25 times, just doing it over and over and over. You think when you watch the video, I just turned that camera on and I just said that one thing, and it was, but even now,
the things people don't know go on in our
people don't know when they watch a video. You just have no idea. Even today's video, I did the open on that video. I did the open. I think there were about 12 takes.
Oh my!
And I was in my kitchen with no airplane noise.
Like I am too. So we want it to sound just right or look just right.
Yeah.
And because of that, though, too, I also like in my videos, like my garden journals and the regular video log videos I do, I end them with the outtakes from my filming process. So if you
copied that from me, because I used to do that. Nobody was doing that, and I was doing that.
Did, but I knew it was just, if I'm going to put myself in the camera and I'm going to try to make it look so perfect, I have to give people kind of a little behind the scenes look at it. And one of the biggest parts of our outtakes are always the airplanes flying above, because I got them flying above me too.
I did that in my very first video. It was actually a dog barking, and I made a joke about it in the outtakes at the end. And I thought, as in terms of airplanes, it was always happening. And I didn't think it would be funny after the first 2 or 3 times. So I just stopped with that. But I learned my lesson. One time I was trying to do a video and I said, I can do this. I can do this at 2:30 in the afternoon. I really can. I'll shoot it out the back door. I'll put the camera this way. I have the little patio there. The light will be okay. And I'll just shoot between planes, and I'm telling you, I was to the point, the level of frustration, I was to the point of screaming because I could not get one sentence.
Oh my.
Because I didn't mention this. So you've got the 2-minute jets going into LAX, and then you have the on the weekends, especially the Cessnas coming out of Santa Monica Airport, going over my house to be teaching. They teach pilots going up and down. And then they also do sightseeing. And then if there's an emergency, then there's a helicopter that goes straight over from the ocean to Van Nuys and back. And then if it's the weekend where they're pulling out all the old vintage planes from World War II, and then they fly those slowly over. Yeah. It's not an air show, but, we're talking an awful lot about.
And those seem to fly lower and all of that too. Fly lower.
Maybe we should talk about homesteading now.
Oh yeah. Well, that's definitely, there's our transition then for sure, because I think that was one of the more interesting things about the history of your channel. Of course, people can look back at all those older videos. You can go check out my page for that first interview we did in Kaye's Cozy Corner in that front yard garden and see all the awesome things there. But you kind of took a little turn, I believe you sold the house and then moved into an apartment there and started doing like some really small space gardening in a little walkway, right? And then if I got the story right, then COVID happened and you decided that you needed an even bigger change. But you want to take us through that process of moving from the house garden to the apartment to where you are now?
Basically, the biggest thing was money. And the second thing was what was happening in the world. And I had this idea that I could maintain. My friends who lived in that building told me about this wonderful apartment that is literally a block from Palisades Bluffs. So you've got the ocean views, you've got the park, and a beautiful, in this particular street, San Vicente Boulevard, is a divided road, and the whole middle of it you can walk. And it's just lovely to walk all around there because you're walking past old apartment buildings like the one I was in, and then you'll walk past $20 million houses. It's all mixed in together. And so I thought maybe I could maintain an apartment there and have a place here and go back and forth and still be available for auditions. But it just, I paid rent for like a year and it was a fortune. And I said, I can't afford it, period. So I just put all my focus here. And I said, and then at the same time, the things that were happening in the business and things I was learning about the business just all sort of said, well, I'll change my union status to Nashville, and I'm still available. My casting information is still online. So I could still work in Nashville or Middle Tennessee or Atlanta if there was something to audition for. But I haven't heard anything from anyone, and I don't have a local agent. So that has a lot to do with it. But then, like I said, the lockdown happened 2 days after I got out of the house. I got in. I got into the apartment, and I had laryngitis, the first time I'd ever had laryngitis, really, and it was so stressful leaving that the first thing the realtor says to you is, "You got to get rid of the garden. We can't sell this house with all that plants." Oh. So I had Teresa and Teresa Harris and Lisa Chandler and Vanita McLennan, and I'm trying to think who else. Another lady that came from San Diego, all to help me. I got a really bad ankle sprain. They came to help me, like pare down the garden and pack up and all that. Vanita was just absolutely amazing. She helped me move into the apartment. So I got everything into the apartment. I even moved, and I have the videos of this, moving that grand piano. And that's such a story. If you ever want to see that video and learn that story about that grand piano. I moved that grand piano into the apartment, second floor, up the stairwell and in there. And it just sat there. It didn't get played. I was only there for like 8 months. By the time I got in the apartment, I gave notice at the end of the year, the 12 months. And I was determined to leave, and I did. So all my focus is.
You found yourself over there in Tennessee then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was another God thing about finding this house, because it's not my dream house, I got to say. But there's a lot of advantages to this house. It's well built. It's still here after 38 years or something, and hasn't been blown down by a tornado. And it has wood heat and a cistern if I can ever get it to stop leaking. And some areas, it's very rocky here in Middle Tennessee. This is true of anywhere around here. Some land is flatter and down by the river or creek, and so you have bottomland, they call it. So there you can grow a lot better, but that's not what this is. And I didn't want to be down with a house down where I could get flooded out. Mm-hmm. And so my house is on a hill, so that's a big advantage. So a lot of traffic on this road. It's a dead end road, but there's a lot of traffic on it because it's a big industrial farmer at the end of the road.
Oh yeah. And
he's got land all around. So right now he's growing watermelons by the interstate, and he's got 3 or 4, 5, I think, school buses, long ones. And he's cut out these rectangular holes all the way down because he can't get his tractor trailers into that area down there. And so he's bought these school buses, cut these things out so it's retrofitted so that the workers can just throw the watermelons in these school buses. And then they go by halfway full of watermelons. And so they take all the watermelons down to the base of operations, and then they have to go out in the tractor trailer. So like I said, there's a lot of traffic, and I probably wouldn't be here if I'd known. But anyway, I am here.
The things you wish you knew ahead of time, right?
Yeah. Well, this is what happened is I was getting close to I had already given notice, and 2 houses had fallen out, and I was back in LA. And Daryl, who is watching now, and I've done a lot of videos with Daryl. He's a 45-year organic gardener and fantastic. We've done a lot of videos together. He and Denise, his pal and my pal, Denise, they were my boots on the ground here. And so it was a Saturday, and I had just been scouring the Zillow listings hours every day. And it just wasn't, there was a lot of not undesirable stuff. And so I was getting pretty worried, and because I had to, well, it was complicated getting out of LA, because they were saying that at that time, this was October of 2020, big pivotal time in our country. And and everybody was leaving. A lot of people were leaving California, and they weren't getting loads back. The moving vans weren't getting loads coming back to California. So you had to pay, it was hard to get one scheduled. And then it was hard. And then you had to pay extra because they didn't have a load coming back. So anyway, I was getting worried, and it was a Saturday, and I needed to edit. And I went into the office, and my editing computer's on this side, and my laptop was over here by the window. And I said, I'm not looking at that. I'm not looking at Zillow. I am going right there and getting this video edited. And I walked in, and I went, well, let me just look real quick, you know. And I looked, it was 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and this house had just come on. And, you know, it was taken that day. So this is what was happening. Anything that was just halfway good was going the same day. So you had to be ready. So I called Daryl and Denise, and they got over here. Denise had her FaceTime, and she's walking around. I said, get in the bathtub. I want to see how big that bathtub is. So she's like, in the bathtub. And bathtub's terrible. It's way too small. But anyway, I bought it anyway. And so I made an offer that day. So did one other person. They came in higher. She said, can you come up? And I said, okay. And I told them about my channel, and they wanted me to have it. So my channel made a difference, because they were raising bees, and they had a few raised beds out there. So, but basically they were only here. They just flipped the house. You know, a lot of people are just flipping. There were so many flipped houses. It was.
What were you thinking though? I mean, here you are again. You went from, like, again, this kind of small, as I'd say, you made it look a lot bigger, front yard garden in Los Angeles. Then you went a little bit smaller to just do a little pathway garden at the apartment. But here you are, you turn around, and you're going the complete opposite direction. Now you got this house in Tennessee with all of this space, this, you know, all of this potential for a garden. I mean, I bet your mind is just really racing at this point about the things that are possible and what you can do. I mean, how are you feeling about that sort of thing? I mean,
well, I don't have enough money to hire enough help to do everything that I want to do. And I'm limited by that. And so it could be so much better if I had a regular person that I could just, you know, because making videos, as you know, takes a lot of time. And if I wasn't making videos and I didn't have the channel, my garden could be a lot nicer. But, you know, I have to do this. It's, you know, I need to offset what I spend on the garden by my YouTube earnings. So I want, and the most important reason why I still do it is because of the feedback I get from the people that watch. And it's really changed a lot. The people that watched me 10 years ago, I don't even hear from those people anymore. Hardly. Mark is watching right now, and he's been with me the whole time, but very few. Daryl found me much later. And so, but it comes and goes, you know, and as there are more and more and more channels on YouTube, you're vying for eyeballs, and it's really tough, you know. And I mentioned this when we talked before, is like a lot of people have gone to, even though they're gardening or farming channels, like the Texas boys, for example. They have gone to lots of content about what's going on, in the world. And you can't start doing a homestead channel. And I do have a homestead here. It's not just a garden. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to inspire anyone. This has been my goal since day one. I am trying to inspire anyone who is physically able, obviously, to grow their own food. Yeah. That was my goal from day one. And that's why it's on the back of my t-shirts. It says, it's never too late to learn to grow vegetables. That's on the back of my t-shirt. So that hasn't changed. My situation, my circumstances have changed 180. Yeah, 180.
You've done a 180.
I've done a 180. I was going to say 360. I'm going, no, I'm not back where I started. No,
that's right. Real quick, Jay asks, how large is the property?
It's 9.18 acres.
Okay.
And he said there are various ways. I couldn't read that whole thing. Do we have other questions? I know I haven't seen any questions coming up.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions for Kaye, pop them in real quick here. We got a few more minutes of this interview here, so if anybody who's watching has a question, be sure to jump in and get that question asked. But
I think for anyone trying to do this, even on a smaller scale, you have to decide. Well, first of all, you have to decide if you can handle the environment, the climate where you're moving to, because a lot of people came from California to Tennessee. Well, that's a huge adjustment if you're not used to Tennessee weather.
Yeah.
And but I grew up here, so it actually hasn't bothered me that much. I mean, I'm not crazy about the tornadoes, believe me, but
I wouldn't be either.
Or the snakes. But, I remember in the Palisades, someone walking into their living room and there was underneath the pillow on the couch, the occasional pillow on the couch, was a rattlesnake coiled up. And I'm going, okay. Yeah. So those kinds of things can happen out there, and somebody else was telling me about scorpions out there. So I never had a scorpion. Oh, so, right. There are things that you have to figure. You need to go there and spend a little time there and look around, and see if
a big change.
And also,
it's got to be
and also, I have a friend who
researched about.
I have a friend who left San Diego, moved to a town near here. I wanted her close by, but she didn't find what she wanted, and she didn't want to be. I wanted to be out where it's quiet. I have had such a noisy life for 40 years. Washington, Manhattan, and LA with flight paths. And I wanted quiet. And so I got close. I got close. And
we got a question. Someone asks, how much of the homestead is wooded? So
I would say acres. I would say probably 5.5 acres are wooded, and over here, that's probably 1.5 acres. But it was just brush. It was not nice wooded like up here, because the people who lived here for a couple of decades just let it grow up. And if you just let it grow up, it's just brambles. It's thorn trees. It's Bradford pear. It's I can see one right there. It needs to come down. But it's not on my property. So, but it may come down anyway. And so I had this thing. I hired this guy, Bubba. And Bubba came with his forest mulcher. There's a video of this. I couldn't believe this thing. He had the largest skid steer, and he had the front end on it. And it was, the whole front end was this big round thing. He lifts this round thing up, and it's spinning. This huge, jagged thing is spinning. I mean, this thing is as wide as the skid steer, or wider. And he just brings it down upon a 30-foot tree, and it just goes, it's nothing.
Oh my.
And I didn't have him do that on any of the good trees. There, I left the walnut and an elm, but all the elms are dying, so this one's going to die too. And so there was almost nothing left and we cleared almost to the property line. So I have planted 3 pecan trees, 2 eastern white pines, and then I put in this was a last minute thought. I decided to put in a squash bed because what has happened in my lower garden, in fact, because of starting out with a small space garden, I have a tendency to just, there's a spot, stick something in there. Well, guess what? That thing, if it does well, is going to get big. And if you can imagine, I overcrowded a 5,000 square foot garden. How did that happen? I don't know. It did. It did. You can't even walk in there. I literally can't even walk in half of it.
Oh, wow.
And remember the sweet potatoes that got eaten by the deer? They have quadrupled.
Oh, my.
Quadrupled. And so it's just like, oh, my gosh. So if you put a squash in there with all that other stuff, especially sweet potatoes, well, it's the sweet potatoes are killed off some of the squash, and there's squash bugs. And if you can't get in there, you can't service those squash bug eggs, if you know what I mean.
Right, exactly.
You can't service those squash bugs. So
with something that big too, I mean, that's got to be a nearly impossible task.
Yeah. And so not only do I have that, but I have 1,200 square feet over here, and the Mark's corn met a bad fate down here, so I'm trying again last minute down below where the other corn came out. So I've still got a few things that are coming on, but the tomatoes, the sunflowers, beans, some of the beans, peppers are still looking, really great. Well, obviously you saw the peppers. I mean, that's just mind-blowing.
Gorgeous. They look gorgeous.
Yeah.
So is there like a real
for
big
anybody who tuned in late? Look at this. This is just the side garden peppers this morning, and I have 3 times as many peppers in my lower garden as I have in my side garden. This is just this morning's harvest.
Oh, wow.
So
there's such great color.
Yeah, we love color.
Yes.
By the way, I just wanted to point out.
I was going to mention that there. Yeah.
This is my late bloomer sign that was made by Jack and Jeremy Davis.
Yeah.
When I made my trip across the country in the beginning of November 2020, and that's my YouTube arrow, obviously. And these are flowers from my garden. This was in today's video.
Oh, awesome.
And this teapot sat in my mother's kitchen for decades. So, and this is I wanted to point this out. This is my flower arrangement.
Yes.
My mother made this.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was a scrap iron sculptor. And this is just one small piece. And she had a friend named Bud Love.
Mm-hmm.
Bud Love. He had a welding shop, and he had a scrap iron thing out back. And she would go down and just pick up. She never learned to weld or anything, but he would indulge her, and she would just pick up stuff that she found interesting, and she would go, okay, weld that. Okay, weld that. Okay, weld all these nails around here. Weld all these nails. Okay, bend that and then weld that. And then this is entirely made out of nails.
Oh, wow.
Those are all nails. Each one of them.
Creative.
And she almost always sprayed everything black, but this one wound up with orange flowers and yellow.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I did want to mention your YouTube plaque back there, because as I also mentioned in the introduction, and I have to say congratulations on the 100,000 subscriber mark. All of us who get started in the YouTube business all look forward to the day we get one of those in the mail. So it was really, really awesome to see that day for you. And I remember watching that video when you pulled that out. It's awesome.
Yeah, I thought for sure that video would just go viral. I mean, just because, how I got this, and
Yeah.
but it didn't. I mean, not that many people watched it. I was really surprised. Ah! Oh, thank you, Kathy. God bless you.
Yeah. All right. So I got a couple of questions here. Let's run through these real quick.
Okay.
We've got Jay was asking, what are some of your homesteading goals? So yeah, you've got this transition from growing things in the front yard, garden, and now you got more space, and it's also been a couple of years later now. So what are some of those goals that you have now with that homestead?
Well, you find what you're able to do, and I have found that I am unable to do, even with a little bit of help here and there. Like I had 4 hours help today. Okay, so 4 hours help, that's $100. So that's very, very worth it. But you have to go, well, how much money am I making on my channel? How much can I afford to do that? So you have to start really figuring things out. So my goals have changed, because when I first got here, I thought, oh, I've sold my house in LA. I have all this money. No. My brother goes, Kaye, you're going to have to get a job at Lowe's. I mean, you're going to be working at Home Depot if the way you're spending money after my first year. Because I hired this guy, and he was very capable, and he could do a lot of things. And so I just envisioned being, you remember, do you remember Barbara Stanwyck? Anybody? I think I was named after her. I think my mother named me after Barbara Stanwyck. She was a big star back in the day, and my mother named me. My first name is Barbara, and but Barbara had a ranch, and she had ranch help. And when I came here, I thought, oh my gosh, if I could just have a property manager. You see, they could do a lot of things that was interested in gardening. And the first guy I hired was, and it didn't work out. But he by having him that first year, I could see that, oh, all right, let's do this. Okay, we could develop that. I mean, if I hadn't had him the first year, I probably would not have been able to accomplish just getting started on that 5,000 square foot garden down there. Yeah. And then the forest mulching. I mean, that guy came in one day and he had all that down. $900, goodbye, and it's down. But then you got to go, well, it'll be right back up unless you take care of it. It'll be right back. What you cut down will be right back in 5 years if you don't keep it down. So everything was silage tarped. And so my goals are really to be self-sustaining. I want to be able to grow the majority of what I eat, except for the meat, obviously, because this is not a great place for animals. I could have chickens, but there's just only so much of me. And I mean, everybody says, Kaye, you got to get chickens. I know. I'd love to do that. But it's just like when I go to bed at night and I go, oh my God, I didn't feed the chickens. Oh my God, the water of the chickens. Oh my God, it's hard to just remember to take care of the 5 cats. Are they in? It's a tornado warning. Are the cats in? Are they fed? Are they watered? Are the litter boxes? It's just like, it's so much work. And so I don't know how much more I can do. I may have to cut back.
Yeah.
And so I may have to let one of these gardens rest for a year while the soil builds, do cover crop and let it rest. And but my number one goal is to get my cistern fixed so it's reliable. And and then there's all this maintenance. My AC for this whole upstairs went out last week, so that was a big chunk of change to just get it repaired. It would have been a much bigger chunk to get a new one. So my goals are to just keep on keeping on, and and try to be
slowly but surely get it done.
Staying positive, spreading the good word, spreading the good news, inspiring others, and just being full of gratitude and
exactly. just the
as
great
much
stuff
as I
that
can.
you always get from your show there.
Thank you.
See, we got Sister Marcel's Backyard Garden says, "Hi, Kay. Of all the plants you transported from California, how many thrive in their new home?" So yeah, that kind of goes along with that question, and maybe along with that, kind of what are some of those things that you had to give up growing versus what you can grow in Tennessee there?
Oh, I had to give up my pineapple guavas and all my tropical plants.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can bring them out for my dragon fruit is actually quadrupled since I brought it out from winter, and I need to pot it up. But until I have a greenhouse that is heated, none of these things are going to make it. Yeah. And so nothing. I'm trying to think if anything has thrived.
Yeah.
My cardamom, my cardamom is okay, and
that one's doing all right. I did show that in my intro, in the garden video. We did a look around in that space there, and I ended it with the cardamom I still have growing.
I saw that
you gave me
it looked good
years ago. Yeah, I mean I've had to take pieces of it and start new ones.
Right.
Pretty much each year.
Right.
And then
you can do that for other people
through the winter. That's all about. That's the biggest thing is getting it through the winter time, and then other than that, it grows really well. Another
goal. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I don't know if it's reachable, but is to have a greenhouse.
Oh yeah.
I want it so bad because I miss the tropical plants so much. I haven't even bothered ordering a guava because it's just another plant that I'm going to basically nurse along in a pot, take it inside, and then bring it back out. I mean, right now I have 4 lemons on my Meyer lemon, but it's in a pot. It can never, it can, I don't know how well it'll do, So I would love to have more tropical plants. That's the thing I love the most. My fig trees and my pineapple guava and my passion fruit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Oh, and the dragon fruit. I saw that picture. Did I post it? Seems like I've just posted that. Oh, no, I sent it to Teresa to put. I just started a new group. I didn't do it. Teresa Harris started a group for me on Facebook. So I know some people are not on Facebook, but if you are on Facebook and you like to use Facebook, I would love for you to come. Right. That's true. It's called Late Bloomer with Kaye Cottrell, and it's a group. So it's going to be a place on Facebook to go where you can chat, and we'll have topics that you can chat about and contribute and like you do on other groups. I never wanted to set up a group page because I have a Late Bloomer Show page on Facebook, but I never wanted to set up a group page because I was afraid I just couldn't service it properly. Right. But Teresa is my person, so she's going to do that for me and repost things and everything. And for my patrons, I still have a handful of patrons who have been so wonderfully supportive to give me a few dollars every month. And I'm so grateful to my patrons because I don't do anything special for them. And I know I'm supposed to, but it's just like, I'm just
fitting it in with your busy schedule and all the things you're doing.
I can't even get the dishes done, so it's like.
Well, I'm sure that most people are glad that you make sure that you're on top of your editing and filming schedule, and people get regular, insights from your homestead.
Speaking of which, I'm supposed to have Wednesday and Saturday at 9 a.m. uploads. I have been trying. But it's been very difficult for me to make that schedule. Mary at Mary's Nest has been invaluable. She has been helping me so much to try to, and she's been sharing my channel a lot. She's pushing 1 million subscribers, and she has a beautiful channel. She explains everything thoroughly. She's a great teacher, and I adore her, even though we haven't met yet. She's got a new cookbook out, so you want to grab that cookbook and support her. I mean, it's every channel owner's dream, and cook's dream, and photographer's dream to have their own book. And I'm a photographer, and I wanted to have a book so badly. And I started working on my photography book in 1990.
Okay.
And in 2004, and then that was all film, obviously. And then in 2004, I went to try to find a publisher in Chicago. The book fair that year was in Chicago, and my brother happened to live in Chicago that year, and so he got me a chauffeur and gave me $100 for lunch and said, go have fun. And I said, great. And so I went to all these publishers, and they're all going, why are you? I said, I just have to wait till I develop a few more pictures. And they said, why are you going to develop? Everything's digital now. And I'm going, oh. Well, at the same time, everything went digital. Canon stopped, and Nikon stopped servicing those old flatbed scanners.
Oh, yeah.
So you would have to take a negative to a film lab and pay $50 per scan. And you can't do that if you're not even sure about the image.
No,
you know, you're sure about the image when you blow it up and you look at it, you know? Mm-hmm. And so until I can, and so I sent my scanner, the scanner is like this big and heavy, and it cost me a fortune. I sent it to Canon or Nikon in New York. And they sent it back and said, sorry, we can't fix it.
Oh man.
You can't fix it? We don't have the parts. Okay. Wow. So until I can get that,
transferred or
going again. Yeah, it's still my on my bucket list to do the book. Whether or not anybody that I photographed is still alive or not. Many of them have passed away. I photographed a lot.
Determined to finish it eventually, right?
I hope so. While I'm still above ground.
So we had another question from Kathy. It says, do you sell your seeds? That's not what a lot of us get asked. I get asked that all the time. Do we sell our seeds?
Well, the thing is, I don't sell my seeds because I cannot guarantee the germination because I don't do germination tests because I'm not that organized. I'm always busy doing something, and I'm not that perfectly organized kind of person like Teresa, who's going to be managing my group page on Facebook. It's like so I don't want to charge people money and them going, hey, they didn't sprout, So I this past season I said I would send. I had 3 or 4 heirloom seeds that I said if you send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, I will send you one of these. Please select the one you want, and I'll send you one of these 4 or 5 seeds that I was offering. And so I did do that, but even that was, the fulfillment end of things requires organization. And some people are so good at that. That's why, okay, listen, my mugs.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember when she stopped, some people were interested in getting a mug, and some people did have mugs. And this is the old mug, the gardener mug. But then when I came here, she changed it to a homestead. And so she stopped making them, and people were asking me. I said, well, I'm sorry, but she stopped making them. Well, she started up again, but she does not do the fulfillment. And and maybe you don't know what that word means, but that's how Amazon got so rich, is because they had good fulfillment. In other words, you order something, it is sent out right away, and it's shipped there, and the shipping is guaranteed. So if something breaks, they replace it or whatever. Well, they got the big deep pockets, they can do that. Okay, if this mug breaks, that means she has to go back in the thing and make another one. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was happy for her. She did all the wrapping She drove them to the post office. She did all of that. And I
Yeah.
wound up with $5. But I go, that's fine, because I'd like people to have it. And she
Yeah.
the rest of it went for materials, postage, and her labor,
Yeah.
And so the fulfillment on the seeds, that means that I have to be organized and have everything organized, and I'm just not that organized yet.
I know. Believe me, I've got a bunch of different things going on myself, and the same sort of thing when it comes to seeds too. I'm actually working on some germination tests right now for hopefully, and I haven't mentioned this yet on the channel yet, for hopefully kind of a free seed giveaway that I'll be doing maybe later on this fall. And so I'm testing some of the seeds from some that I've saved. And
Yeah, I'd like to
hopefully be
do.
able to do that. But it's all of that same stuff that you're talking about. It's the work of getting that done, then even getting everything set up as far as packaging them up, and
Yep.
then again making sure that they're getting out to people when they're are requesting them. So yeah, I mean, I totally get that, especially on top of all of the other things. I mean, we've been talking about all the things it takes to do all this stuff, from whether it's our gardens itself, which is the most important part. That's what we're here doing, and then the filming and creating of videos and doing all that other stuff as well too.
Yeah, and I had one of the things that I had in the beginning, this is a long time ago now, was Heather Muro made these wonderful earrings, and she made me a bracelet. She said, let's collaborate. And I said, she made me a late bloomer collection bracelet, and she sent out a little pot of seeds and the bracelet. And if you ordered it, and it had these wonderful beads, and she had some vintage beads, and then it would have this vintage antique tomato. So, and then she did all the fulfillment. Once again, I just made like $5 or something, but it was just, my channel did, but it was just great because people got to wear my late bloomer bracelet,
Yes.
I wish there was more of
all the stuff I wished I'd done, similar things I've thought about, book, photography, and all that sort of stuff I'd love to do. All that same stuff. I think if you get into this sort of thing, creating videos and all that, those are very similar things that we're all kind of thinking about. So I've got one last question for you here.
My wish list is a greenhouse.
Yes,
I'll deal with all the maintenance and repairs and the cistern and all the things that go wrong. But man, if I could have a greenhouse, that would be awesome.
All right. So we got, again, one last question for you here from Fields of Gold. Are you going to retire?
Depends on what you mean. Right? Retire from what?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to retire from gardening, and I'm not going to retire from acting ever.
Yeah.
Whether or not I am fortunate enough to do it again, but
yeah, I mean,
and I'm not going to retire from life, so I guess I'm not going to ever retire.
Yeah,
I mean, I just remember now. I won't be able to remember her name, but she was a famous actress, and I remember she was 85 and she was on Broadway. And she was doing, I guess she'd always done yoga, and she was doing headstands. I've never even been able to do a headstand. I've been able to do shoulder stands, but she was able to do headstands before the show at 85.
Oh, really?
And I'm going, oh my God. And then you hear about these, I used to hear about these stories of, they'd be acting and they're like 85, 90, and they're on stage and they just go, that would be the way to go.
Some people retire early. In fact, I worked at a job, and for many, many years, one of my customers, a regular customer of mine here who lives in Southern Oregon now, was Kim Novak. So Kim Novak was one of my, famous friends that I had here. She came in all the time, and yeah, she's just one of those that retired early and got out of all of that business, but again, continued doing all of her art and all the things that she loves. And I think that's kind of on the side of what you're talking about, though, too, is that, these are passions. Gardening's a passion, doing these videos, even for me, it's kind of something I really enjoy. I don't necessarily, I mean, it's a lot of work in some sense, but I don't necessarily think of it as a job. So when we think of retiring, we're kind of thinking like retiring from a job we have to do. But in the long run, I just can't see myself not doing some of these things, and especially gardening and growing vegetables and all of that.
Well, I don't think anybody can afford to anymore. I mean, we can all be, oh, we love gardening. No, we have to be growing our own food now. I mean, with, without getting into it deeply or anything, but I mean, every day there's another train derailment, another food plant going up in smoke. And I mean, where are the investigations? Nothing. So we have to, I think we just have to be nose to the grindstone growing food.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. And I don't feel like I can let up. I've got two sons, and young people are not glued into, not all, but some are, like Stephen at Nature's Always Right. He is totally clued into what's going on. And, he is raising his meat, his lard, doing his lard. He's doing it all. And he's really great. And he came up and he actually did the first interview of me since I've been here it was on his channel. And here's another thing. This is so typical of me. It's like, everybody said, Kaye, you've got to get a drone camera. They told me this in LA.
Yeah.
I am not going to put a drone camera up that's going to annoy the neighbors. It's actually annoying to listen to that and to have that overhead. But here, it wouldn't bother anyone. And everybody said, Kaye, you got to get a drone camera and show your property now, like Doug does. Doug has all these beautiful scenes of his place. And I'm going, that would be so great. So I finally ordered a camera. This was back in April.
Okay.
And I took it out of the box. I got the app on my phone. I got all the parts out. I got everything charged. And that's as far as I got. And then Stephen happened to come up and do these videos with Daryl and me. And he stayed here, and he was going to teach me how to do it. See, I need hands, people to show me stuff, rather than just reading a book and going, okay. And so he was going to show me, but he ran out of time. And so he just pulled out his drone and he shot some aerial footage of my place. So you can find that on his channel, that interview he did back in April of me. But I thought it'd be so cool to take that footage, which he sent to me, and then show it now when it's it's not beautiful now. It was beautiful a month ago. The sunflowers are dead. The tomatoes are like dying, and it's nothing like it was 3 weeks ago. So
that can be the case. Changing
but the sweet potatoes. Oh my gosh, Daryl! I'll have to give Daryl some sweet potatoes. He had problems with his sweet potatoes this year, so I'll have plenty to share.
All right. Well, Kaye, it's about that time in the interview there. I want to thank you so much for spending your time. We had a really great conversation, getting to learn a little bit about your history and all of that sort of stuff. And I also want to thank all of your great viewers. We are filming or showing this live stream through on your channel, so this is kind of a first for us in our show to be able to stream through your channel as well. And so anybody watching over on Kaye's channel, I do want to say, be sure to get down in our description. I don't know if they match or not, or if there's a link or anything like that, but come on over to the Urban Gardener and join with us on Saturday mornings here for some of our really awesome interviews with great gardeners like Kaye and all sorts of people that we've had to interview here on the Let's Get Growing show. So definitely come and join with us. Is Rob's Allotment Gardening, is that through me or through you? Do you know Rob? That's through my channel. Yeah, Rob joins in with us each and every week. Okay, so I'm seeing that here, and so I didn't know if that was coming because of you or because of me. Yep, we've got a mix of all of our different channels right now. Yeah, so I don't know if I can. In other words, I don't know if I can see what all you have, and if you can see what all I have. I don't know,
Because I don't
Yeah,
see
from my
every,
side, I can see the difference of who's from where, but I don't think you guys all can from the other side there too. But
because I have Jay, the moderator, and thank you, Jay.
mhm.
But I don't have everybody that's left a comment. I don't have on that. So I think
Yeah.
that's my channel, and yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, just a little bit of a mix of everybody. But again, I encourage anybody who's watching from my side on the Urban Gardener, be sure to get down in the description below and go check out Kaye's channel and follow along with all the great things that she's got growing on in her Tennessee homestead there. And then everybody who's watching over on Kaye's channel, again, like I said, come on over, check out what we've got growing on here on the Urban Gardener channel, and check out everything and all of our great interviews on the Let's Get Growing show.
And if you're on Facebook, please check out the group. We're just this is brand new. We just did it like 2 days ago, so you'll be some of the first people to join.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, and what we'll do too is I also have a group. It's called the Let's Get Growing group on Facebook as well. There is a link down below in the description to that as well. I'll try to get a link for Kaye's group in the description too here just after the show. And then also maybe we'll put up a post in our group as well. Encourage people to go over to Kaye's group and check that out as well too. So that's what we're all about here, is sharing and caring when it comes to the gardening community. That's one of the things I really love the most about my experience here on YouTube and doing all of the videos and all the different creative things that we do here, is to share that with everybody. And again, just really wonderful to have you, Kaye.
Thank you.
Again, like I said, just one of my favorite people, and I'm so glad to finally have had you on the show. And if you stick around just a few minutes, I'm just going to finish up the show, and then I'll catch up with you just real quick before we end.
Thanks for everybody for tuning in.
Awesome, awesome.
God bless you.
All right.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
So, all right. Again, thank you all so much for joining with us here today for our live cast here on the Let's Get Growing show on the Urban Gardener channel. Also, like I mentioned there at the end with Kaye, if you're joining us from either channel, be sure to subscribe to our channel here and to check out some of our upcoming shows here on the Let's Get Growing show. Next week, I have joining with us our good friend from Norway. So we're going to be doing an interview from Norway. We've got our friend Christopher Bransdahl going to join up with us. So be sure to come back here next Saturday and check out that really fun interview. And we'll talk about what it's like to be doing some gardening in the country of Norway. He's got so many cool gardening projects and all that sort of stuff too. So I really hope to see all of you there. And then again, too, be sure to hit the like button if you haven't already. Love to see those thumbs up. So hit the like button and also share the show, share our channel with all of your gardening friends. Let them know of our Let's Get Growing show and all the really cool people we've got here in the gardening community joining with us. And you can check out all about that at our website, letsgetgrowing.live. And again, too, one of the best ways that you can support our show and our channel is to support our sponsor, Ivy Organics. And at ivyorganics.com, you can shop in their shop for their fertilizers, their 3-in-1 plant guard. Use our promo code GROW, GROW10 to get 10% off. And again, thank you all so much for joining with us here. We'll do one more mention of our garden community, the Let's Get Growing garden community group that we have on Facebook. There's a link down below to that as well. And again, what I'll do is I'll try to get on there real soon, real quick, right after the show, and put a link to Kaye's Facebook gardening group too there. And y'all have a chance there to join with her and her gardening community as well too. And if you are watching up to this point as well, I would love to give a shout out to all of you who are watching on our replay. Thank you for watching with us after the show, and get down into the comments section below. Let us know you're here. Let us know what you think of this interview. Anybody watching, let me know if you have any ideas for our show, people you would love to see interviewed for future shows. We'd love to hear all about what you think about our show here. So again, thank you all so much again for joining with us this week. And from all of us here at Let's Get Growing, you have a great week, and I'll see you all next Saturday.